Hey guys, SuperHorrorBro Mike here, and in this video we explore the world of Little Nightmares 2 ahead of its planned release next February with an in-depth look at one of the game's villains, the Hunter. Not much is known about this terrifying predator, however small information drops on the Little Nightmares Twitter account alongside a recent 15-minute gameplay reveal has shed some additional light on his character. In this video, I take this information to develop a detailed character profile, as well as taking a look at some theories and speculation of my own. So sit back, relax, and let's get started. Let's kick off the video with some confirmed facts about the Hunter. When analysing his appearance, we see the Hunter dresses in typical poacher attire. He wears a peaked cap, a torn and worn tweed jacket, and trousers tucked into a pair of old leather boots. Perfect attire for patrolling the overgrown, muddy forest he inhabits. The Hunter's face is concealed by a filthy sack, with a bullet hole in the side. More on this later. In his hands he carries a shotgun and flashlight which he uses to track his prey before blowing them away. Once the Hunter has successfully bagged his victim, he then begins the process of gutting and stuffing them to put on twisted display within his rundown old shack. That's right, the Hunter is a dab hand at taxidermy. From the developers themselves, we have the following statement. The Hunter seems to work alone, stalking the wilderness with a rusty shotgun and a lantern-style flashlight. His motives are unknown, but he does appear to have an interest in taxidermy. For those unfamiliar with the term, taxidermy is the process of preparing, stuffing, and mounting the skins of animals, or in this case humans, with lifelike effect. We see examples of this all around the Hunter's abode. However, we also know that the Hunter does not kill all of his victims, at least not right away. He has held 6 prisoner for an unknown length of time in the basement of his shack. While the Hunter keeps the living close by, his dead victims are strung up in a large sack some distance from his quarters. This is most likely to keep the rancid smell of rotten flesh at arm's length, although judging by the state of his kitchen, one would guess the Hunter's cabin hardly smells of roses either. On the topic of breathing, take a listen to the sound the Hunter makes when giving chase. It sounds as if he has trouble breathing, wheezing and rasping with every step. I will cover an explanation for this in the second half of this video, but keep this fact in mind for now. Finally, it seems the Hunter will be the first major boss encounter in the game, as he appears shortly after Mono and Six first meet. So, with that in mind, how can we expect our encounters with this horrifying creation to play out? We already have evidence as to how the Hunter will interact with us during gameplay thanks to an extended demo released by Bandai Namco during this year's Gamescom event. This footage showed a variety of ways in which the Hunter poses a threat to both Mono and Six. To begin, we have traps to contend with. These come in a variety of forms, from bear traps hidden amongst the leaves, to snare nets that lift our heroes into the air at the blink of an eye. The only way to avoid said traps is by springing them with throwable objects such as the pine cones seen here. We can even use the shoes of past victims. I guess they won't really be needing them anymore anyway. Once the Hunter detects us, he won't give up chase easily. It's lucky he has those aforementioned breathing problems, which cause him to stamp along at a far slower pace than the children he pursues, despite his greater size. In order to avoid his shotgun blasts and the gaze of his lantern, Mono and Six must use the environment to their advantage, hiding behind objects such as crates and fallen trees, or crouching down amongst tall grass. However, just because they are hidden does not mean they are safe from detection. Venture too close to birds feeding in this grassland and it will cause them to take flight, alerting the Hunter to our presence once more. From everything shown thus far, it seems escaping the hunter will take great care and patience. We must wait until just the right moment to dive out of sight and inch forward at all times. We've now taken a look at everything we currently know for sure about this spooky woodland predator, but what about his place in the world of Little Nightmares and possible connections to the first game? Well, even using the footage shown thus far, we can easily tie the hunter to the moor, and here's how. Firstly, as Mono enters the hunter's shack, take a look at this bottle on the counter. You may notice a familiar looking symbol drawn upon it. This is the all-seeing eye that of course played a prominent role during Six's journey aboard the moor. It most likely represents the signal tower we are venturing toward in this sequel. However, the moor is the establishment most associated with it. In fact, during prequel Very Little Nightmares, when exploring the nest, we came across boxes shipping out to the moor, and once again all of them contained this exact marking. This tells us the hunter is not only aware of the moor, but most certainly has a direct connection to it. But what is this connection? Well, let's speculate on one very peculiar detail seen in this gameplay footage. The fact that Six has not been killed like the majority of the hunter's other victims, but rather is kept prisoner within his shack. Moreover, take a look at the room Six is held hostage within. It contains chalk drawings on the walls, showing us that other children have been kept here before, some for long periods of time. Maybe these tally marks reveal the number of child prisoners the hunter has accumulated over the years. But what happens to these prisoners? We see no evidence of the hunter performing taxidermy on children, and so it seems instead they are held here until the time comes for them to be collected and shipped off to the moor. After all, we see the hunter does indeed keep cages similar to those found aboard the moor, and I can imagine the boatman seen in both portraits within the moor and within the pages of the Little Nightmares comic would be the perfect accomplice to complete this transaction, ferrying children captured by the hunter directly to the moor. But the hunter's connection to the moor may go deeper still. Take a look at one of the key enemy designs found aboard the moor in the first Little Nightmares. The chef. Notice how they resemble the hunter. Just like him, they have fat stubby fingers, short legs, and a stocky build. Notice how they rip and tear at flesh in a similar fashion too. The way they both amble about. Is it possible these cooks are in some way related to the hunter directly? Could they be a separated family of some kind? The plot thickens when we analyse this portrait on the wall of the hunter's cabin. Look familiar? It should do, as the creepy looking boy in this painting can also be seen in the Little Nightmares Residence DLC here. This may well be the hunter as a young man, tying him directly to this aquatic prison. With this in mind, we need to look beyond the fact that the hunter is providing the moor with children. I'm sure he wouldn't catch enough to make it a full-time job. No, he must be providing a more frequent service. But what? Well, to establish that, we need to think about what exactly the hunter is best known for, outside of the meat he supplies from hunting, that is. The answer is of course taxidermy, but how would this be useful to the workers aboard the moor? The answer is literally staring us in the face, the creation of the all too realistic looking masks worn by the residents of the moor to conceal their horrifying appearance beneath. We recently gained further insight into how the signal tower and its broadcasts work. Apparently, the transmission from this tower causes bodies to distort and mutilate in terrible ways. This explains why so many characters look so deformed. For example, Roger the janitor and his gangly arms and tiny legs. So masks are employed to allow those afflicted to at least maintain some form of dignity, and it seems the hunter is the one making them. Heck, he even has some porcelain work in the attic, or perhaps these masks are made from human bone. Either way, it looks like he would also be quite comfortable making a mask for none other than the lady herself. This theory fits neatly together, so chances are it holds some truth, but we can't know for sure. We do know the craftsman created dolls for the Moor, so it seems logical to conclude other characters in this world, like the Hunter, also provided additional services. Before concluding this video, I would like to briefly touch on the Hunter's backstory. Most of this is wild speculation, but I do want to include it for those interested. One thing I noticed when analysing the recent gameplay footage and then looking at some official screenshots for the game was this heart. We see a heart-shaped window on the door of the outhouse here, and when looking at this image, a heart with an arrow through it carved upon this tree. Hearts represent love. A heart with an arrow through it of course represents the broken-hearted. If this is secret world building for the Hunter, then it suggests a tragic backstory, one which perhaps drove him to become the deranged maniac we now find. It is possible the Hunter lost his family, more specifically a loved one such as his wife or partner, and ever since he has roamed the wilderness alone and unhappy, consumed by his twisted work. Slowly becoming lonelier and lonelier in his isolated shack, the Hunter tries to recreate the family he lost by killing innocent explorers and then turning them into dolls to pose around his home. This dinner table scene becomes even creepier if we imagine the Hunter sitting down to eat with them every night, perhaps even having conversations with them into the early hours of the morning. When Mono ventures upstairs, he finds a taxidermied woman sat in a chair at the far side of the attic. Maybe this is the Hunter's long-lost wife or mother, kept out of sight, but forever nearby. It's all very Psycho-inspired and morbid, I'm sure you'll agree. And while the Hunter creates masks for those aboard the Moor, he doesn't have one for himself. My explanation for this would be that he placed a bag over his head and shot himself after the loss of his love. He could no longer stand to live, but much like the fate of Thin Man, the signal tower's transmission did not allow the bullet to kill the Hunter, and instead it simply deformed him, melding the bag to his face. The bullet hole a constant reminder of his desperation and torment. And such a wound to the face would certainly explain those troubling breathing sounds and incomprehensible mumblings, wouldn't it? When we look back at the faces of his dinner table victims, we see features such as a missing face and an eyeball hanging from its socket. This may be an artistic choice, the Hunter showcasing, through these people, elements of his own deformity after his botched suicide attempt. It's likely we'll never know for sure, but let me know what you think in the comments section below, and remember to leave a like if you did enjoy this video, and of course subscribe for more horror related content. Thanks for watching, and I will see you on the next video.